and supine. And you're just going to cup your fingers underneath their head, and it will just pop right out at you. Okay, because it's the biggest bump on the back of the head. Okay, the nuchal line is going to travel laterally from your inion, or your external occipital protuberance, I call it inion. That's where all of your, I don't know why I'm having word finding problems already. Your cervical muscles, your short cervical muscles are going to attach along the nuchal line, and so it's a very common place for people who have tension headaches to have a lot of tension along there. And so it's important to be able to palpate it. The external occipital protuberance, or inion, really is a landmark to help you find the nuchal line, which is then that muscle attachment. Okay? So there's never, I don't know of any trauma to your inion, so it really is meant more as a landmark. So I find it's the inion, and then I just am coming out now for muscle tightness. You're going to go just inferior to the inion, and then I'm going to take the pads of my fingers and actually press up just a little bit while I'm cupping his head. So what I'm doing is I'm finding his inion, and then I'm putting my fingers all along the nuchal line. I'm going just inferior to the nuchal line, and I'm tucking my fingers up while his head is now resting in my palm, okay, so that not all the pressure is here, to feel for that tissue texture tightness. Okay, everyone clear? Clear as mud? So I'm here, I find his inion, I come out, go ahead and relax for me, James, there you go. And I am pressing down on his head just a little bit to get him to extend, actually, and then bring my fingers up. You're very tight.
Yeah, probably.
You're going to have to be my volunteer for later, okay? So, just because I think he's going to have some funky movement. Funky, cold Tina. All right, so those are the occipital bones. Parietal bones are just going to be right back here. Again, there's nothing you're really going to clinically going to be palpating parietal. Temporal is going to be more in the front. We are going to be palpating for a pulse up on temporal. We do have the mastoid process, and where's Lily? So what muscle attaches to the mastoid? Yeah, the SEM. Okay, that's its name. So it's going to be important to palpate the mastoid process because people will have problems with their SEM, and you'll tend to feel increased tension at their points of attachment. I'm sorry, run right over your toes. So your mastoid process is going to be behind the ear, and it's going to be that big dip. Okay. Now what's important is we're going to be palpating the styloid process, which is just anterior to it, and it's like a little mini coracoid process. It's going to be sticking out and it's going to be pointy, the styloid process, but the mastoid process is this big, going down right behind the ear. Okay? So he doesn't like to have his head straight, and he's got a little bit of a tilt, so it's like, oh, I really want to get in there. So for mastoid process, I have my hands behind his ears, okay, and then I'm using my middle fingers, and I'm palpating bilaterally so that more people can see. But that's going to be his mastoid process. Okay? And you can feel it come down. Zygomatic arch is going to be your cheekbones. Okay? So your zygomatic arch is going to be across here. There are sinus cavities inside the zygomatic arch, and so you may palpate the zygomatic arch for reproduction of symptoms. If you're trying to differentiate between a tension headache versus a sinus headache, you might palpate the zygomatic arch to actually rule in a sinus headache versus a tension or musculoskeletal headache, because there wouldn't be tender if it were a musculoskeletal origin. So again, that's going to be right along here. It also is a bone that can be fractured in trauma, so you might palpate the zygomatic arch for that reason as well. Like I said, I don't think our the styloid process, oh, there it is. Okay, do you see it on this model on this side? So here's the mastoid process, and do you see that, just that little skinny little bone back there? And it's very close to the transverse process right there. So how to palpate the styloid process is you're gonna go in front of the mastoid process, and then you need to go deep, and you're palpating for that styloid process. And all I'm feeling is his transverse processes. So the styloid process, how you're going to tell the difference between a styloid process and the transverse process is the styloid process is a part of the skull. So if I move the skull, the styloid process should move with me. Whereas if it's the transverse process, it's not going to move. It will move a little because they're all connected, but it won't move as much as the styloid process will when I move the head. But do you see how much I'm moving the head? It's not a whole lot. Okay. Do you have headaches? No. You should. No. he's so tight. Very tight and not very symmetrical. Okay. And then the frontal bone is going to be the front part of the noggin. Okay? All right. I really do want you to come back because I want to feel your upper cervical spine. You have me curious. Are you willing to do that?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go ahead and run through this list. Does anyone have any questions about this list? Okay.